Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 27 of the Midweek Mixup podcast. And this week, it's the Three Musketeers. We have myself, Shomberlon, and Madz Gaming. We'll get into the introductions, and then we'll get into the solo topic for this evening, which, of course, is the Bethesda takeover completion. First of all, we'll go to our regular panel member, Shomberlon. How are you doing today, brother?
Yeah, I'm good. Bit of a tiring day, a bit of a tiring week actually so far, but
definitely.
I'm still here, guys. I haven't whelped out on you like some people. No, there's some legitimate reasons. But yeah, it's good to be here.
Awesome stuff. Have you managed to play anything recently, or has it been quite busy with work resuming a bit more?
I've played a bit. I played a fair bit of Final Fantasy, which I'm really enjoying. What I'm not enjoying is how crap the PlayStation 4 control pad battery is. It's like
I did tell you about thankfully, and a lot of people might not realize this, but you can buy upgraded 2,200 milliamp hour DualShock 4 batteries.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that because it's not even like I play my PlayStation Pro that often. I reckon if you were to average out the whole time of when I got it to now, it's probably less than an hour a week. That's how little I play it. And it's got about 5.5 hours battery life.
Ouch.
So, I mean, I hear all these people going, oh, well, mine lasts for 9 hours for the last 15 years and never had any drops. It's just like, I don't believe you. It's just, even if I'm incredibly unlucky. Same with my brother. My brother's had some good ones, actually. My brother has had some good ones that have lasted, but he's also had some diabolical ones. It almost seems like the ones you get with the console are crap, forcing you to buy ones that probably have slightly better batteries in, but I don't know. But I've been playing that. Like I said before the show, I think the new console has kind of ruined me a little bit because beforehand I would have been like, when people are kind of going about 60, 30 frames per second, I'm like, I don't really care. I don't really see it. Now, it's just I was playing, what did I say I was playing? I bought a Sniper Elite Contract just because I love sniper type games, and that's definitely 30 frames per second. Holy crap! Yeah, that hurt my eyes. And it was Days Gone. I started to play that because I bought that in the sale, and I thought, I'll give it a go. And I don't know whether I was particularly tired that day or what, but that hurt my eyes as well. I had to stop playing because it was just doing me head in.
Well, welcome to the church of the 60 frames.
Before you join us, like they better bloody hope get that frames per second boost sorted pretty quick on everything on the Xbox because holy crap, I need it.
Oh god, yeah. I'm so glad that they've introduced that, and obviously it's now in the options and in your settings menu right underneath HDR, auto HDR.
I think the biggest time that I noticed it was when I first started to notice it was with Controlled Ultimate Edition.
Right.
When you've got like the ray tracing and everything, it looks really pretty, but as soon as you start spinning that camera around, it's nasty. It's nasty. So I play it at the moment.
That's generally where you notice it most, though, isn't it? As soon as you start using the camera to kind of look at a different angle, it's
if you're kind of slowly panning across something, then it's not a big thing. It's cinematic.
You know what? I'll tell you, 30 frames per second games looks good as a still image. That's it, basically, right?
Or a point and click.
Yeah.
You just don't quite realize it until you've been playing 60 frames.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. So consider me converted.
Welcome, whatever.
Awesome stuff. And again, introducing Madz Gaming, all the way from his own podcast, which is obviously just started to resume back up again itself. Glad to have you back again this week there, Madz. What you been up to? What you been playing?
Yeah, hey guys. Thanks for the invite as always. And what I've played a little bit of Dirt 5 this week. I'm really enjoying this game, and generally speaking, I like racers, right? All kinds of racers, and like this one is like really kind of I don't know, like it's pretty addictive, right? It's just fun, right? Maybe it's not the prettiest game of them all, but like, hey, it's 60. It looks good, generally speaking. it's very easy to get into. It's very easy to control and that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the cars. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different environments. You've got dynamic weather conditions. So
that's one of the things I love so much about that game. It's because it's not just dynamic weather. Like the entire track and race change because of the weather.
Yeah,
especially when it starts like the heavy snowstorms and the track just covers up and you can't see in front of your eyes. And
you drive 1 second and the other one's like, what the hell? I don't see anything. It's cool. Yeah, but I really like that game, and so I played that game for the most part, and I also started hold on, I've got it over here installed on my PC. Blair Witch, right? Because like this year I started playing the medium, right?
Yes.
Really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that game, despite some technical glitches here and there, right, and issues. 30 frames per second being one of them, actually. Funny enough that we actually spoke about it. But so I beat medium. Then I thought that, you know what, I'm in this kind of horror kind of game mood. So I beat Resident Evil 7 as well. I really enjoyed it. So then after that, I was like, okay, so how about I'll start another horror game, right? So I started Blair Witch as well. So, but I'm very early, so
really
can't say anything much about that.
Can't say whether or not you like it yet.
I really enjoyed it when I played it. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, did you? Right? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
but I've never watched the film, so I don't know where it fits into everything in that sense. But I think it's a really good game. It is similar to the medium, as in there's next to no real combat really. There's a little bit here and there, but
it's mostly just for the story.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's good. That's good to hear, because like I said, I've heard quite a lot of good stuff about that game. I mean, it's a Bluebird game, Bluebird team game. So it's apparently it had some technical issues on consoles, but I've got it on PC. So yeah, it's smooth as well. So as for the 60 frames per second games, it's actually funny that you said that now you see the difference. And like even me, I've been preaching like 60 frames per second for a very long time, and and I get where people are coming from when they say, I don't care about frames. I mean, I want better graphics, and 30 frames per second is more than enough for me, right? But I actually see more and more people now when they once they've got those next gen systems and they actually play a lot of these 60 frames per second game, they notice, because when you play a lot of games in 60 and then you go back to 30 in any game, you see the difference straight away. Because you don't see the difference when you go from 30 to 60 straight away. I mean, you kind of see that it's more smooth and stuff, but it's not like a massive difference, right? But when you go back to 30 from 60, right, back, it's like, just like you said, it's like hurting my eyes, right? Literally. And now you've got like those games like Control, where you can basically change the resolution and performance mode on the fly, basically. Without exiting the game and stuff. It's a massive difference. So so that's what I've been playing. So thanks a lot again for the invite, and let's get into those. Well, one big topic. Very important one.
Yes, indeed. So if you've somehow missed the huge news this week, even though it was inevitable and it was just a case of waiting for the I's and the T's to get crossed, eventually, Microsoft had the deal completed with ZeniMax Media, otherwise known as Bethesda's parent company. So what we had is essentially a mishmash of two different statements, one being from Bethesda, the other being from Xbox, about what exactly is going to happen initially. And the key points really that stuck out were that the takeover as a whole initially, even though it is now completed, nothing is going to be decided immediately. The studios are going to be working together now as one, as a whole. But anything that is currently in the works, any agreements, etc., as we know it, will remain as is. So there's going to be no changes to exclusivities. There's going to be no changes to any pre-existing contracts in the works for a couple of the games that might be coming out in the future. But there's also the section that's caused the most kind of disagreements in there that should be ironed out, and we'll get into that. And that is the word that has been focused on and by Phil Spencer. And it was that although they're going to look and play best on Series X and S and PC, there are some games in the future are going to be exclusive to Xbox platforms. That in itself has caused the most issues. We've all been relatively vocal about this. I tend to not kind of be open and vocal about it on Twitter as much and kind of keep my opinions for when I'm on here. But Madz, I know you've been pretty vocal about it on Twitter as well recently with them wanting to kind of be more upfront, a little bit more cutthroat. And I know Shom's exactly the same in the DMs before we've been on, exactly the same kinds of points of view, needs to be more cutthroat. Before we kind of get into a little bit more of the finer details as to what's been said in that, I want to go over to Madz first on his opinion on kind of what happened yesterday and the statement that was read and your initial impressions and opinions.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you straight away. I was a bit disappointed, right? Because, I mean, not with a deal and stuff, of course, right? Because I was super happy about that deal when I first found out, back in September last year. But the thing is, like, this statement was like, it didn't provide any insight into what's really going to be happening with those games, right? And at the end of the day, we knew already what Phil Spencer said a couple of months ago. He said that, decision will be made about game exclusivity to the Xbox platform on a game by game basis, right? So now I get that post, right, on the Xbox Wire, and I read it, and obviously they talk about, that they are welcoming Bethesda, they are very happy about it, blah blah blah. And then they say that, Xbox is going to be and Game Pass is going to be the best place to play these games. And I was like, and that was like the first red flag, right? And I didn't get into to that some part yet, right? So I was like, what the hell are they saying, right? And then obviously I read the rest of it, and and it was actually funny because when I was quite quick reading that, right? So I missed some part. So I was like, okay, so they saying that the new game is going to be exclusive to PC and Xbox. Okay, and I was like, okay, that makes sense, right? Okay, finally we've got some clarification on things. And I was with Lord Cognito and Addict on the chat, right? And I was like, no, hey, they talking about not all new games going to be exclusive. I was like, okay, so let me read that again, right, slowly this time. And then obviously they said that some new games will be exclusive to Xbox and PC. Now, the problem is that like this statement brings nothing new, like completely nothing new. And to be honest with you, they might have as well just say nothing, right? Because they could have just made a post, hey, well, we welcome Bethesda, more news will follow, because that's what they actually did at the very end of the blog post, right? They said that we're not really going to be talking about any specifics of the deal or games, whatever, right? More news will come later. So that didn't really bring anything new. So and don't get me wrong, it's not even about whether these games will be exclusive or not, right? Because like obviously the biggest takeaway of this all is that like whoever is subscribed to Xbox Game Pass is going to get all these games day one, and even this week we're going to be getting some older titles that have been already published by Bethesda, right? So some of these games already going to be getting into Game Pass this week. Pass, you will be getting. It would be nice on things. Microsoft is proud of the fact that they are, what's the shit? Now I can't speak English today on the podcast. They are transparent, right? But with this statement, they are really not. It's like they say a lot and nothing at the same time, right? Because that means nothing. We still don't know whether what game is going to be exclusive, how is that going to work? Are they? I mean, they are talking about new games, but does it mean that Starfield is going to be exclusive, or are they referring to games like Deathloop and the other horror game, the
Evil Within?
No. I'm talking about this Tokyo Wire or something.
Oh,
like that.
Yes, yeah.
So
Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that statement can be basically translated in many ways, right, and understood in many ways. And obviously, you get people that so PlayStation owners now saying that most games will be still on PlayStation, while Xbox guys are saying that most games will not be on PlayStation, right? It's just like, we are getting again into that console war because, if they didn't say anything, nobody would be even angry about that much, right? Apparently, there's going to be some kind of event or however you want to call it on Thursday, right? I mean,
yes.
Tomorrow,
Apparently.
basically. Yeah.
yeah.
It's Wednesday. Times fly, right? So maybe they will clarify some things tomorrow. I don't know, but my that basically they didn't really provide.
You just lagged out a bit there.
No, nothing, right? And there's just base.
You're lagging out a bit there, Madz. If you want to cut the camera, let's see if that helps with the audio. If you can hear us.
Maybe his whole thing is completely.
Might have done. See if he comes back. If before that, then no, I don't know. Keeps dropping in and out. Whilst we're waiting for Madz to recover, Sean, what's your thoughts on the statement so far?
It feels like a very. It feels like Phil Spencer's written his piece, and he's quite happy with his piece.
Yeah.
And then he's handed it into PR, and PR have been like my old English teacher in high school, just going, nope, can't say that. No, you change that to that. Can't say this, can't say that, and there you go. It seems very PR orientated around certain word usages. Again, about what obviously they know the plans, we don't, so it does leave some heavy ambiguity about what they're saying. But there's certain paths you can go down. Is have they bullshitted us past? Do we have to add everything up that's been said to try and create our own picture, kind of things like that? Because if you remember back in, I think it was October, November time, when Phil Spencer's saying, we don't need to put our games onto a rival platform.
Yeah.
We don't need to do this. But then there's also, we have the timed exclusives, things like we don't know what contracts have already been pre-drawn up prior to, before purchase. So there's a lot of different factors that go into being thought of when they're writing a statement like this. And I know a lot of people are focusing and lingering on the word some, which is probably the worst word they could have used, because you look at
that alludes to the fact that most games will be multiplayer.
Well, it doesn't really. That's the thing. Is
it's a kind of mix mash. It could be taken either way.
It can be when you look at synonyms for some, which is where my job kind of comes into quite handy, and where my masters came into handy, because part of my masters was breaking down text and looking at text behind the meanings behind certain words and things like that.
Yeah.
The word some can mean a few, a handful, things like that. But it can also mean, when you talk about quantity, a lot of, lots, a wealth of. So it's probably one of the worst words you could use, because the synonyms for it are both ends of the spectrum. It's not a case of just a couple. That's what most people think of when they say some. They always go to the negative. They go to the lower number. But it can mean the opposite, which is why I don't think it's been very helpful with the way they've gone about things. I would rather have them just said that they will talk about things later on. I know it'd have been more frustrating, such as why can't you do it, blah blah blah. But I'd rather them do that now, because all that's going to happen is whenever they announce a game, they'll announce what's it coming out? It's supposed to be at the end of the year. Starfield. And it'll be like, oh yeah, Starfield, blah blah, this date, blah blah blah, and then rather than reporting on that, everything is going to be the whole news cycle is going to be replaced by PlayStation talk. Is it coming to PlayStation? Why is it not coming to PlayStation? It's unfair on PlayStation owners for who have supported ZeniMax for years. It's you have the whole narrative that can be easily flicked over by the media that at the moment are more in favor of PlayStation. I mean, you look at the way things get twisted these days. It's a celebration when, and it shows their dominance and their power when they buy full exclusives from previous things like Street Fighter. Or when they do a 2-year Final Fantasy deal. It's just, look at them. This is PlayStation. This is why I buy a PlayStation. But when Xbox does it, it's kind of like, well, it's a little bit of a monopoly. I don't like the way this is going. The question I have with that is, like, how can you brag and say that PlayStation has a 2-to-1 lead or a 3-to-1 lead, that it's third place in console sales, and then bemoan that it's a monopoly? How can the person in last place have a monopoly?
Yes,
it's these people.
I think they seem to realize as well, up until the point that Xbox purchased Bethesda, you're talking. So what did they acquire? Another 8 studios, was it?
That's it. It's 8 studios, and
before that, PlayStation had 13 of their own, and they've just closed down one of the major ones in Japan.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I say PlayStation fans keep banging that drum of 2-to-1, 3-to-1. Last place, because all you're doing is, whenever it comes to buying other publishers or studios, that's what they can turn to and go, well, how can we? We're in last place. Yeah. So, but I mean, I think the idea behind getting a publisher is, I can't remember who said this. It might have been Rand. I think he was saying that it just means that Matt Booty doesn't have so many studios to look after. Bethesda are self-sufficient. They can carry on doing what they're doing. They'll just report to either Matt or Phil Spencer, depending on how they've got the arrangement. Yes. So it doesn't really matter. I can see why they've done that. It just makes life easy for them, rather than one person having just doubled their workload.
Well, that's the thing as well. And obviously, other than the fact that Xbox Game Studios will probably be on title credits for a lot of these games, Bethesda have also wanted to continue self-publishing.
Yeah,
they do that.
Well, they're good at what they do. They know what they're doing, so there's no point rocking the boat. That's what people always complained about, is that Microsoft will buy somebody and then they change everything and it would go to pot, like a la Rare, before they kind of found their feet again. Yeah. So it's kind of like, you have to weigh things up, but I don't think the announcement has been too clever in that sense. I think it's probably taken away from a lot of the
some things better left unsaid.
Yeah, I think so. I think so to an extent.
To an extent, unless they've got something worth speaking about, sometimes they don't need to speak, and I think sometimes they feel the need to be transparent when they don't need to say anything.
I think they felt a lot of pressure
Yeah.
from media outlets and fans to say, is this going to, are you going full exclusive? But they could have just said, we'll make an announcement shortly, and then really got everything, the ducks in a row, and got ready. And then they can dedicate and saying, look, because you don't want to do this in an announcement post. This is what I kind of thought was a bit strange. Because what they could have done is, rather than have it in an announcement post, kind of said, right, there are some contracts that are in play that we're not obliged to discuss right now. But outside of the pre-arranged contracts, everything else that's going to be published made by these studios is going to be exclusive, barring your Elder Scrolls Online or your MMO type games.
Yes,
but everything else is going to be first party to Xbox and PC. And
that's kind of what I assume is going to happen anyway.
That's what I kind of think. I just think they've just cocked up the way they've said it.
I think that's going to be how it is after current exclusivity agreements. And because, of course, let's face it, there is probably some games that haven't been spoken about yet that were already contractually obliged to be on several platforms. So some, which is why they've said some games in the future, and this is the only thing I can think of, why they've said some games in the future will be exclusive. Probably those games may not have already had those contractual obligations discussed, but because of when the deal was being discussed with Microsoft, they essentially disclosed the information of unannounced projects that hadn't yet been discussed with other major platforms. And they said, right, okay, we'll pin those down then, the hours going forward. You only mention them, the hours.
I have a bit of a hypothetical question. What do you think would happen is, because they've said that they've wanted to honour contracts that have been pre-made.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard this until this week, but apparently Sony were after buying complete exclusivity of Starfield.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you reckon they would have
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Madz, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So
yeah, that's why I've gone to picture only with my one, because my internet's been having a fart this week and I didn't really want to risk it.
Yeah, same here. Like I've been having some internet issues today, so that's why I'll go with the picture as well. No face.
All right. Actually, Madz, if you want to answer that one first, what do you think?
Yeah, about the Sony buying Starfield.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I heard this week. I mean, I don't know where it came from. I've heard like 3 or 4 people say it now that Sony were inquiring about purchasing full exclusivity. So not any 1 or 2 year, it'd be permanently exclusive. If they had done that and then Microsoft had bought them, do you reckon Microsoft would have kind of cancelled that and kind of gone, right, well, we're going to pay the whatever fine fee, whatever it is, to cancel that contract? Because I can't see that going over well if that was to happen.
That would be bad. I mean, I don't think that happened.
I think it only got to inquiry stages. It never was in...
Yeah, exactly. So if that was to happen, I think that Microsoft would honor that.
Really?
I know that. I mean, I know it sounds weird, but that's the thing with Microsoft, right? Is that they are really trying hard, sometimes even too hard, to be darling of gaming, right? And it's just it's not working out for them anyway, because they are basically. Sometimes I feel like, at least among hardcore gamers, right, and gaming press, they are being laughed at, right, because of that.
Yeah, I feel that they're trying to shed the Bill Gates Ballmer Microsoft image, where they would buy up an opposition and shut them down just because they could get in the way of what they wanted to do.
But it's not working for them.
No, it's not.
At least in my opinion. I don't know. Like, look, I'm not a PR guy, but I read articles, I watch podcasts, all kinds of podcasts, and I hear what people say, right? And reality of it is that it's just not working for them. And it's just I don't really understand why they are like that. That they are trying to please everyone instead of focusing on their own, player base, right? And the hardcore game. Well, not even hardcore gamers, because like I don't even think that Sony really listens to their hardcore gamers, because if they did, they wouldn't allow their precious exclusives on PC, right?
Well, Jim Ryan said it. He said that the reason we're putting our games onto PC now is because we tried it with Horizon Zero Dawn, and PlayStation people weren't all that bothered. And
yes, exactly, and that's my point. They don't really listen to hardcore gamers. They just wanted to check how the rest of the PlayStation Nation is going to react to it, right? I'm talking about like 99% of the we're not talking about like 200 people on Twitter that are angry every day, right?
They're looking at the 100 million that bought the PS4 and not the 20 million.
They don't give a shit about, I'm not going to be naming any names here, but they don't give a shit about that or the other dude with the YouTube videos, YouTube channel, or like a big Twitter account, right? That doesn't really affect their bottom line, right? They care about these people that really buying these games in millions and stuff, right? And that's why what I'm trying to say is that, like, same with Xbox, is that it's kind of weird that like they should be really more concerned about their own existing user base rather than competition, right? So as for Starfield, right, I did hear some rumors about the fact that PlayStation was trying to secure it as an exclusive, but I never knew that they were trying to make it a permanent exclusive. So I didn't hear that. This is the first time I've heard that, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the source is. I've
Yeah.
heard it. I think I've heard Tim Dog say it. I think it was Tim Dog on RDX, and I've heard it in another podcast I was listening to. But again, yeah, I don't know what the source is for it, where they've gotten this from.
Yeah. Well, who knows, right? I mean, they've got the Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. That's like a year exclusivity, I think.
I was surprised with Deathwire. Wasn't that first announced on Xbox Stage?
It was.
That kind of when that came out, I was like, oh, really?
and listen, this is why I this morning I sent a tweet, right? Which where I put something like, it's funny that Bethesda was not afraid to make their own games PlayStation 5 exclusives, but Xbox, despite the fact they knew that Xbox is probably going to buy them anyway. These talks have been going on for like 2 years or something.
The feelers would have been out for years, yeah.
Yeah. So they were not afraid to make these deals, right? And kudos for them to securing, because they got extra money for that. To be honest with you, they couldn't known. You're never 100% sure whether a deal will go through or not. I'm talking about Microsoft right now, right? Yeah. They were in talks for a very long time, but you never know how that's going to end up, right? So I put a tweet out that Bethesda had no issues, basically making some of their games PlayStation 5 exclusives, while Microsoft is actually afraid to admit or maybe even really make some of these games exclusives, because this is the problem with their messaging, is that like this is not even about, we don't really know what we're talking about. We don't know whether they will really make these games exclusives or not, right? I mean, their messaging is just basically non-existent, to be honest with you, right?
Yeah.
Because so it's even difficult to be I guess angry or at Microsoft for making those games exclusive or not, because we don't even know which games going to be exclusive. So this is the irony of this kind of messaging. It's just like they are just making stuff even more confusing, right? So but for me personally, I'm really looking forward to for Starfield. So if PlayStation secured that game as an exclusive, that would be a bad news for me. I mean, I still got PlayStation 5, so I could potentially buy it on PlayStation 5 anyway, but it would not be on Game Pass, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, that's what I like about Sony. I like their aggressiveness in the market.
Yeah.
They fight for their customers, in a sense, and I want to see Microsoft do that. With the whole Bethesda thing, it's not that I want Sony fans to not play these games. I want it to be exclusive, so Microsoft shows that they're fighting for my money.
Yeah, and you know what's actually funny about what you just said, right? You want PlayStation 5 gamers to play these games, right? And that's totally fine. But the funny thing is that when Sony makes a game an exclusive, there is no way you're going to. The only way to play that game is to buy a console, right? If you don't have their consoles, you're not going to be playing that game, at least not day one, because obviously later on now they are moving some of their games to PC. Some of their games make their way to PlayStation now and stuff, but like day one, right? While with Xbox, if you really think about it, right, you don't really need PlayStation, you don't really need Xbox to play these games, because you can play these games via on console, on Xbox. You can play on PC, but on top of that, you've got xCloud, which is available on Android and will be available on iOS very soon. Support for PC and TVs is coming pretty much this year, if I'm not mistaken. So in reality, as long as you've got a decent internet, right? You don't have to buy an Xbox to play these games, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I don't even understand why Microsoft is so afraid to take away these games from PlayStation 5, because the fact that a game would not be on PlayStation 5 doesn't necessarily mean that PlayStation 5 owner can't play this game.
Yeah, they've got no access.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, everyone has a tablet. Everyone these days have a phone. And if you don't really want to play on a small, screen or something, you can play on your PC, via Xbox streaming. So you don't even need a powerful PC. A weak as a laptop with a gamepad is going to suffice. And on top of that, TVs, support for TVs is coming very soon. So there's so many ways to play these games via xCloud that it's just like, there's no limit, basically. I guess the only limit would be internet, right? Speed, potentially. But,
even if that was an issue, they've got the S for a reason. I thought that's the whole point of having a lower thing, is like if you wanted to be a primarily PlayStation 5 owner, but then there was one or two games that you were like, I really want to play them, but I'm not forking out $500 or whatever currency it is for you. Get the S.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. 100%. My thoughts primarily on it. Obviously, we know it's common knowledge that we know that they were trying to get Starfield as some form of timed exclusive. I wasn't aware that it was going to be. They were trying to get it as a full permanent exclusive either. But most definitely heard that they were trying for a timed exclusivity on Starfield. Now, of course, the rumor has it that Starfield will be fully exclusive to Xbox. Now, personally, at this point, I can't see that happening. I can see that still being multiplayer, as it was already an announced title.
But it was never announced for a platform, though.
It wasn't, but it was kind of one of those generic kind of, this is Starfield, this is one of our next projects.
I think it'd be a PR mistake if they made it multi-plat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if you think that you've got the two...
It could very well be, but at the same time, we're talking about, unfortunately, as much as we love Xbox, as an actual platform. Their marketing's been lackluster, and they're very much soft touch. They haven't got cutthroat, and they really need it. This is where Microsoft really trips up. At the end of the day, they might not see PlayStation as a competitor, but in the home console space, PlayStation is very much still a competitor, and they need to treat it as such. They need to understand that people will be still buying, whether it be an expensive smart TV to play xCloud on, or whether it be one of the new consoles in Series S or Series X, or a high-powered PC to play it on, or even just a normal, relatively decent PC with a good internet connection and play an xCloud. Either way, they need to justify, in some way, shape, or form, buying one of those platforms. So, but they're not cutthroat enough. So the only reason I'm saying that I expect them potentially to still have Starfield as a multiplat is because I still don't believe Microsoft have got the balls in it to, and I could be proven wrong and happily be proven wrong. It is one of them things where I'd rather be proven wrong than not. But I still don't think they've got the balls to turn around and make that an exclusive when theoretically they should be cutthroat like PlayStation, going, no, that's ours now, so it's exclusive.
Well, that's the thing. The fact that we're even having this conversation in the first place. If it was PlayStation, then there wouldn't be any shadow of doubt, and that's what kind of irritates me a little bit.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, not sure if you've seen that, but if you go to Bethesda website, there is a blog post made by Pete Hines, and he basically says somewhere in that blog post that this is very early, and they this is like literally first couple of days as an Xbox game studio for them. So there won't be any changes to what they do right now. And obviously that doesn't really necessarily say too much, because
his wording is that initially we're going to be putting a lot of our games into Game Pass. Beyond that, stay tuned.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds like whatever project they've been working on, and in any capacity, in terms of because obviously when they started working on some of these games, they've been working on both versions, right? Like PlayStation and Xbox. So it sounds like and if Starfield is really going to be one of the first games to be released, it might be the case that those first games going to be still multi-platform, because they won't they may say, so much work has been put into that version of the game, why should we scrap it, right? And I don't think that Xbox has made any any decisions regarding, and they haven't really changed anything. Even Pete basically said that nothing has changed and nothing will in the immediate future. They will still keep doing what they've been doing for the last couple of years, right? So it's kind of weird.
Yeah,
it is.
The little blog post that Pete Hines on really didn't say anything. It's a very short statement, essentially thanking Xbox, thanking Phil Spencer, saying obviously that's a bittersweet moment because Robert Altman, one of the co-founders, passed away last month. We're just looking forward to continuing going forward, 35 years. But the only part about the deal together is simply stating, first, let me say we're not making any landmark announcements or changes right now. As we've all shared, the expectation is Bethesda Softworks and our studios will continue as we have in the past, just with more support and resources than ever. Obviously, Game Pass has been important for an important initiative for Xbox, and we'll be working on putting even more of our games into Game Pass than ever before. Beyond that, stay tuned. We're just getting started. So they've not even said anything either. But they also want to say, I think essentially on that one, that is a better statement than what Xbox said. So firstly, let me say that with no landmark announcements or changes right now. Now, in terms of major acquisitions in any other business, what you have to understand is even though the deal is concluded on paper, the studios are now one, they still now need to sit down together
Yeah.
and do all of the internal changes. So what
Yeah, that will take months, if not
Yes.
years.
One thing that will have, you've got to think the HR departments have now got to get synchronized. So all of the staff have now got to go under Xbox's books. Now it's not just a bit of paper saying right now we are doing this. Now the staff, they won't see anything, but the back office, that's a massive change. Then you've got the financials that are going to be changing together. You have all of the different architectures, the systems. You've got the way they do their meetings, the way they do their reporting. You've got who's reporting to who now. Of course, they were the bosses of their own giant organization up until yesterday. They're no longer they are the bosses of the giant organization, but now they report to somebody for the first time in their history, which is a first for ZeniMax and Bethesda. So now they report to somebody even bigger than they ever have been. So they've still got, now they have a hierarchy that is above that original hierarchy. There's a lot that has to be digested internally before they can make any landmark announcements primarily. So I think that statement from Pete Hines and Bethesda is better than the one made by, and I've just gone Xbox Wires, because it'll still be there. It's one of the the easiest ones to find. So there we go. To Phil Spencer's statement. Which essentially, there we go. It's an exciting day for Xbox. Today we officially complete the acquisition of ZeniMax Media, parent company Bethesda Softworks, and it's an honor to welcome the 8 incredible studios. Now that everything is official, we begin working together to deliver more great games to everybody. At every step, building toward this moment, I have been inspired and motivated by the creativity, insight, and community-first approach of the talented people at Bethesda. Our goal is to give these teams the best foundation for doing their greatest work and learn from them as we continue to build Xbox into an inclusive platform for all players. This is the next step in building an industry-leading first-party studios team. That is a good statement. A first-party industry-leading studio. Commitment to Xbox community. With the addition of Bethesda creative teams, gamers should know that Xbox. This is where it gets muddy. Xbox consoles, PC, and Game Pass will be the best place to experience new Bethesda games, including some new titles in the future that will be exclusive to Xbox and PC players. Now, that is right there. That could have been left out. That whole, in addition to Bethesda creative team.
Yeah.
That that little section there should know Xbox consoles, PC, and Game Pass will be the best place to experience new Bethesda games. That should have been. It didn't need to say that. Leave that out. If you want to welcome them in, welcome them in. Much like they've said, we'll have nothing to share at the moment. There is no big changes happening immediately because, of course, as we know, in large acquisitions, there's a lot of things to take in. There's a lot of things that they need to do in the background. But I think Xbox sometimes say things too early, and then when something changes a month or 2 months down the line, which will be the case, because let's face it, that's exactly why Bethesda have said, right, today we're not announcing any different changes, we're not announcing any kind of major overhaul in what we're doing. It's a case of, right, this is what we're doing. This is initially we're just putting things on Game Pass, and then we'll go from there. That's essentially all they had to say is, right, Xbox and Bethesda, blah, 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 blah. Starting this week, we'll be bringing a lot more Bethesda games over to Game Pass and looking to enhance previous titles or something like that.
And we're excited to talk about the future at a later date, blah,
yes,
blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. No major, much like them, there is no major overhaul being announced today. Of course, stay tuned for more information in the future. And then that's a perfectly fine to say, right, okay, they're not going to talk about it today. It's understandable. Because you've got to think of it, a lot of the people, especially on Twitter and on the internet, they don't know how big business works. They don't know what happens when another business buys another business. They just think, okay, they've bought them, that's it, it's done. But that's not when they've bought something. That's primarily just the start. That's just okay. Right, we're now together. Right now, what? That's
You know
the very
what?
beginning.
I mean, my company I work for actually went through a similar kind of acquisition.
Yeah.
So we were, I'm working for like American IT company. I'm not going to be throwing any names here, but it's a global company as well. But we were taken over by a big Asian communication company. And literally, like first year, I didn't notice any changes at all, like nothing. The only changes were at the very top, right? They were basically, preparing, hiring people that would kind of merge us together, right?
Yeah.
Despite the fact that my company is still its own identity, right? It's still, the company it used to be, but it's now obviously it's controlled by that big Asian company, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, after a year I started noticing a bit different differences in terms of like what kind of products we were supporting. Some older products have been basically killed, the IT products, right? And so that's when things started basically actually changing. When I finally started actually noticing differences, right? So I think that the same will be with Bethesda. Like whatever they started working on in terms of games, titles, and stuff, they will just do it in pretty much the same way they did. Now with a totally new projects that they will start after the acquisition, well, that's going to be totally different story, because a project that Bethesda will want to work in the future will have to be greenlighted by Microsoft, and they will have more to say about it, right?
Yeah.
And then things might change. But I think that for the most part, like, yeah, I mean, these games probably going to be multi-platform with some exceptions. And I've heard some people saying that it's a long-term investment, of course. But the change is going to be very gradual, slow, and it will take years before like Bethesda will really be working for Xbox only. And I think that it might be kind of a good thing. Phil Spencer might actually take advantage of that situation, because Phil still needs at least a couple of years for xCloud to take off, and Game Pass to take off. So I guess releasing some of these games on other platforms will just bring them a little bit more money, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's the way I look at it right now.
Sean, what do you make on kind of what would your approach be then going forward? Obviously, you can't, as we know, everything can't be changed overnight. But what would your approach be over the next, let's say, even the first 6 to 12 months?
Depending on what they've got coming out, and obviously, if there's no other pre-arranged contracts, anything that is earmarked to be multi-plat, I would automatically put as a timed exclusive in some form or another. Whether it be 6 months to a year or even 2 years, depending on how thingy they want it to be. But it's hard to say without knowing what is actually going on, what they've got in the pipeline. You don't know. People speculating about Wolfenstein 3, Dishonored 3. We don't even know if these even exist yet, or how far into development they are. We're all just speculating and guessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? Quick question to you guys. Because we always, and everyone pretty much says that, it would be a very simple thing, a very clear messaging with Sony. They would just make all these games exclusive, right? That's the assumption. But the problem is that has never been done. Sony has never bought a big publisher like that or a huge studio like that. And if I'm not mistaken, every single studio they bought, maybe not every single one, but for the most part, and especially when it comes to like bigger studios, the way they bought studios in the past was like, so we've got that studio that have been making exclusive games for us for a couple of years. So now they've been tested, and we know that they are capable. We can trust them. So now let's buy them. But the thing about it is that that particular studio has been, would have been, making exclusive games for PlayStation already anyway. Look at Insomniac, right? Insomniac have been making those PlayStation exclusive for how many years for PlayStation? Like 5-6 years?
Barring,
So really, when they bought them, they're not really taking anything away from other platforms, because Insomniac games accept Sunset Overdrive, right? But that's not even sequel is not even in development. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But they're not really taking anything away from other platforms.
But Xbox have done it already once before with Ninja Theory. Now, Ninja Theory Hellblade 1 primarily came out on PlayStation and then PC and Xbox. And now Hellblade 2 is exclusive to the Xbox platform.
Out towards the same. What's his name? Matt Booty already confirmed during one of the interviews, unless they changed that decision. But he did say that the potential sequel to the Outer Worlds is going to be exclusive, because they are thinking about they are looking into it, and they want to build another franchise. So
yeah, I'd heard that. So, but I think it depends on what the contract with, was it 505 that published it?
Yes, it was 505 Games.
So I mean, it depends on what the contract was, that, or Microsoft said, right, well, if you've got multi-thing, we'll buy the other one, the other years out, or the other, not years, the other games, but probably only a one game thing, just to see how it went.
Yeah.
So after that, it reverted back to Microsoft being sole owned anyway. One thing I did want to ask you is, in that whole statement by Phil Spencer, it went on about plays best. What do you think that means? It's an odd statement, because obviously it's going to play best on PC. Theoretically, it should play best on the Series X because of the hardware involved. But it's kind of a bit of a weird brag.
Yeah, are they going to intentionally nerf the other consoles so you have to purchase it? Or
if anything, I think it relates. He meant to say that now that Bethesda is a first party studio, we will support them in a way that they will be able to take a full advantage of Xbox Series S and X. Maybe, I don't know. That's the only thing that really pops in my mind, basically, because what else?
They'll have the access to the stormtroopers that jump in to help hardware-wise to get everything going, whereas if it doesn't quite work as well on the PlayStation, it's like, all right, well, does it crash all the time? No. Does it hurt your eyes at 30 frames per second? Maybe. All right, let's just send it out.
It's a possibility. Madz, what would you do then if it was in your hands over the next 6 to 12 months? Obviously, you were in charge of kind of the decisions on what the future of these Bethesda games are going to do. What would your position be? What would you do?
Okay, so if it was up to me, I would look at that, financials, and what would be best financially for the company. So I know that a lot of people would just want all these games to be exclusive to Xbox, right? But the problem is that we don't really know the numbers, and that Microsoft has. I'm talking about how many. I guess we know the numbers. How many copies of Bethesda games were sold between these platforms? Because I even saw like a report where it actually said that a lot of these games, Bethesda games, actually sold better on Xbox One, despite the fact that PlayStation 4 outsold Xbox One like 2-1, right? But these Bethesda games seems to be like more popular on Xbox overall.
Because they boycott them a lot of the times because they have issues with Fallout. They're just kind of like, well, it doesn't work, and
maybe
they didn't release a DLC for Fallout 4, I think, because they were just like, well, we can't get it to work.
But the way I would look at it is like, because obviously I don't know their plans. I don't know, I don't know their simulations in terms of like, and predictions, how many xCloud users they're going to have by, end of next year, for example, when these games going to start basically releasing and that kind of stuff. How the financials actually look like. And obviously, because the one thing that kind of not necessarily bothers me, but like makes no sense to me, and when it comes to releasing these games on PlayStation, is that are you really serious about pushing those Xbox Game Pass numbers or not? Because if you want to grow steadily and slowly, yes, just release those games on PlayStation 5, right? And just, grab some extra money from these, PlayStation 5 guys, right? Buying your games and stuff. You're not going to get 100% because you will have to share with Sony, but still, $70, games, that's like, at least $50 in your pocket, right? Per copy, right? But the thing is, like, long term, is that a good business practice? I mean, wouldn't it be better for them long term to actually push those users to Game Pass? So potentially, in the long run, they would potentially stay there and subscribe for longer time, and in a long run, they would actually leave more money in the ecosystem. There's a lot of, because we all need to realize that, like, when we talk about Game Pass and that kind of stuff, Game Pass brings money, right? But it also costs them a lot of money to bring those games to Game Pass, but Microsoft. But the thing is, like, when Microsoft talks about engagement, and people laugh at it, but it really makes sense, because when you engage with a platform, you are more willing to actually spend money there. And I'm not even talking about just subscription alone. Like, take me, for example, right? I'm subscribed to Game Pass, right? I've got Ultimate, so I pay $15 per month, right? But on top of that, while I'm on Xbox, or potentially somebody else could be on PC or whatever, right? I'm going to buy some games on sale and that kind of stuff, right? So obviously, even though that a lot of these games are not first-party games, Microsoft gets a cut from every single transaction, right? So people are just looking at at Game Pass as, oh, so this is the only way Microsoft is making money. Not really, because once they've got you into in the ecosystem, you will be spending money on microtransactions, on skins for games, or for characters for for games, buying games basically, like on sale or whatever, right? So despite the fact that I use Game Pass, I still buy a lot of games on Xbox, right?
Yeah.
So that's why the whole thing that Xbox don't need consoles just makes no sense, because when somebody when you are on, for example, and this is another question, how they're going to handle xCloud in the future, because if you're going to be able only to use Game Pass to stream those games, they will limit themselves in terms of revenue, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're on Xbox, you subscribe to Game Pass, you take advantage of Game Pass, you play those games for $10 per month, but on top of that, like, you are in the Xbox ecosystem properly, and you go to Microsoft Store, you buy games, and Microsoft makes money off of it, right? But when you're on PC, for example, you don't necessarily have to buy games in on Windows Store. I mean, you may, but you don't have to, right? When you on iPhone or Android phone, can you buy a game through that application? Probably not, right? So we would think it actually is beneficial for Microsoft to sell more consoles, because these people on consoles will actually be spending money actually when they are on these consoles, right?
Yeah. It's just it does go back to kind of what everybody wants Xbox to do and be more cutthroat. For me personally, I would just, as you would, do the honourable business thing and honour any current agreements. But outside of honouring current agreements, I would simply state, obviously, with these being now first-party IP and first-party property, going forward, these games will be primarily and solely on Xbox platforms, that be Xbox console hardware, Series S and X, PC and xCloud. Will not appear on anything else. And I think primarily that needs to happen. They need to kind of make that distinction and kind of cut that out. It is a bit of a tough one. Again, a lot of people, especially the ones that don't quite understand how these things work, people just expect, I think, everything to happen overnight. So there's kind of two things. Microsoft don't do themselves any favors with the way they word what they do, but then people also expect things to just happen to, let's say, just transfer over, okay, exclusive as of now. And I don't think it's quite that straightforward. I mean, if it was me personally, again, honour the agreements, everything else, exclusive.
Going forward.
Yeah. Phil Spencer has said in the past, we don't need to ship this on any other platform to get it to make money. We have enough of a user base on PC, mobile, and console to cover those costs.
Well, that's the kind of thing, is like, even if you were to kind of go down it comes first to Xbox, that's not going to do Game Pass any good, because gamers are stubborn. If they're kind of going, I mean, look at PC players, they're willing to wait how long now for the Xbox and PlayStation games? They were like, all right, well, I'll wait 2 years. I've got loads of other games to play. That's no bother to me. So it's not really going to be sending people over to Xbox or Game Pass, because they'll just wait.
Yeah.
Although it would be funny. It would be fun if it was $70 on PlayStation and 60 or 50 on Xbox.
Well, that was that comment that was shared prior to this, and someone was like, "Oh, would Xbox really miss out on £560 million from?"
Oh, the guy with the really bad maths. Yeah,
from potentially 8 million PlayStation purchases. And again, that goes down to people not understanding how business works, but also not understanding how game profit works either. Because if you sold 8 million copies, you're not making £560 million. Yes, the games in total would accumulate 560 million, but that's not profit. I mean, we should all know by now, one of the basics of any sales is that if you're selling, and it doesn't matter what it is, if you're selling something, if you're selling that phone, you're not making you're not making £1,100 in profit just from selling that phone. You're not doing that. That's not how it is, because you've already spent on the parts, you've spent on the labour, you've everything that goes along with it, distribution, packaging, shipping, advertisements. That all bottles into the cost of these things. So they wouldn't be missing out on 560 million. They'd probably be missing out on something like 80 to 100 million, maybe.
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things to Microsoft, they've made more in a quarter than the deal of acquisition was for Bethesda in the first place. So Microsoft are thinking, well, okay, so we'd lose out on 100 million. We've probably done a transaction larger than that this month anyway. So
it's not even just down to that. If they can turn that 100 million into Game Pass subscribers, they then can go to other companies and go, right, we've now got 30 million Game Pass subscribers, and they're in a stronger position to negotiate, which is infinitely is worth more than the 100 million to begin with, because they've got power to negotiate in different areas.
Exactly. And what we've had plenty of different developers and things like that on the show previously, and the question we always ask, of course, is, would you like Game Pass? Like, would you like to be part of Game Pass? Or if you're part of Game Pass, how big of that is it for you? And obviously, Thomas Salah, we had him on the other week, and his was, it's the equivalent of getting a large city all of a sudden in one go playing your game. It went from quite a few thousand people playing it on Xbox and PC to having the equivalent of a large city playing my game overnight. So it's a massive jump for him. Sega came out and a kind of a niche-ish type game, 2 Point Hospital, now has accumulated over something like 3 million players just on Game Pass.
Such a good game, that.
Which is it's massive. And for them, that's just one of their smaller franchises. 2 Point Hospital isn't a big franchise for Sega. Yet, look how much that is to them. They're like, okay, we've seen just how good it has done for a smaller one, so obviously we're going to be starting to put more onto Game Pass. And these are third-party publishers.
I'm interested to see where the Sega Xbox partnership goes. I don't think there'll be a purchase.
No.
But I think there'll be a close working together, whether that'll be exclusive, timed exclusive, or our games now come to Game Pass day one, something like that. You know, it's interesting to see. Yeah.
And again, especially for indies, and this is another thing obviously Thomas Salah mentioned, was that for indies, it's an absolute no-brainer. It brings so much kind of publicity to your game, and so many more people play your game in the first place, that it's an absolute no-brainer in terms of financially initially. It covers the costs of what he needs to live and to pay his way and to make a game and not worry. So obviously he's not going to be a millionaire overnight, which is, again, he's an independent developer, but everything's covered. The cost of his game's covered, the cost of distribution's covered, the cost of his living and his rent and his food and looking after his family is covered. So he's in a steady position there, and that's an independent developer putting his game on for the first time. That's the first game he's ever created, and he's already covered.
That's what Joe said he strives to go for.
Strives to get onto Game Pass.
Yeah. Because he knows the value it is for his game.
Yeah. He sees the numbers, and that's the thing. Xbox need to, as much as they keep pushing it, I think sometimes they've got an issue, kind of a semi-problem. Do you know when someone quite, like, is trying to sell you a product, but at some point it doesn't quite seem like they believe in it as much as they're trying to make you believe in it? I think sometimes Xbox have got an issue with that. They're like, really, you need to get the Game Pass, you need to get the Game Pass, you need to get the Game Pass. And, okay, play on xCloud, get Game Pass. And we're all like, yeah, it's an awesome service. It's doing really well. This is what you need this is what you should be doing to really make this kind of pop. And then it's kind of like they're not quite putting the foot all the way down on the pedal. But they really could be. They could be pressing this so much more. Again, if you're purchasing a 7.5 billion acquisition of 8 studios, you're going to be like, right, all of these games on Game Pass. This is why you need to come to Xbox. If you get Xbox, you get a Game Pass subscription, you get all of these titles day one, and you don't need to pay anything other than that subscription. If you want to purchase these games, they're going to be discounted. Like, this is a reason you need to get into the Xbox's ecosystem. But they kind of half-heartedly do it. They try to convince you, but they're not kind of convinced themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's almost like they've got their own little imposter syndrome going on.
Yeah.
When it comes to Game Pass, they want to advertise it. When it comes to some things, they're like, I'm not sure. Will this work? Let's see.
Yeah, it's like they've got such a good thing going, and like Madz was saying, obviously xCloud still needs time, but the beauty of xCloud is that it's just free with Game Pass. It's an additional service that you don't have to worry about having to get something else for. If you have Game Pass, you have it. It's not like you need to go out and do something else. No, you just download the Game Pass app, and that's how you play xCloud. Simple. You don't need any fancy equipment. You've got a phone, brilliant, it works.
Is there any other way to get Game Pass? To get xCloud, or is it only via Game Pass?
I think it's just via Game Pass because it's still in beta, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, and on the PC, they've just started it on the, of course, if that's in alpha, and I think only a few people have been able to try it so far. I think Windows Central have. But the browser format, so you will be able to go onto the browser. Now, the funny thing is, of course, is that PlayStation don't have that browser, so they wouldn't be able to, even if they would want to. But even then, this is another whole roundabout situation. Xbox don't kit away you're playing on Game Pass. If you end up, by some miracle, playing Game Pass on your PlayStation, it's still having to pay that money to get Game Pass in the first place and be part of the Xbox ecosystem, and they're still making money off that anyway. So no matter how you do it, how you go about it, if you're paying them for Game Pass, you're part of the Xbox ecosystem. There you go. We've got your money. That's it. That's all. They need to be pushing this. Like, no matter what you do, we're going to have something for you within Game Pass. At the minute, they've got everything in Game Pass that somebody could want. Right? You want any kind of genre game is there. They're starting to bring Japanese developers in there. Bethesda games are going to be going in there shortly. What they really need to be doing, following this acquisition, is like yesterday, Aaron Greenberg was the first person to say, "Oh, this is going to be coming into Game Pass." That should be Phil Spencer, really. Right, okay, as of this week, these will be going into Game Pass. We're going to be put all of the Bethesda. Really, what they need to be doing is right. As of end of this week, we'll be starting to put all of Bethesda's back catalogue into Game Pass. Not just, we'll be starting to add some. Why some? Why why only some of your own property are you putting into a service where all of your first party property is there?
I think it's spacing it out. So rather than just dumping everything, like if they've got a couple of slow months where they might not have as much, or they're kind of like, oh, we don't know whether this is going to pan out. Well, at least we've got these games here.
Initially, though, wouldn't you? Initially, you'd be saying, right, we'll put Rage and Rage 2 in there. We're going to be putting the Elder Scrolls titles in there, including the original one for the OG Xbox, which was an exclusive at the time. Still is. Still can't play that anywhere else. Then you would put The Evil Within, both of those games straight in there. You'd put Wolfenstein games in there. You put the Doom games back in there.
I think they will eventually. Like I said,
the major titles. I think following the major titles, because you can put the major titles in straight away. Right, these are the major titles. Following that, secondary games, all the games that people might have forgot about that Bethesda or ZeniMax have created, then start rolling them in.
I think it's just spreading it out rather than blowing your load straight away. I think it's just. Can you imagine a month where they even have some really good exclusive games coming to Game Pass? And then we have this as well from Bethesda that's also a sought-after game. Just makes that month look extra special.
Mm.
You know, it's actually crazy because I made a video today about all these studios, right? And, you know, I've run some numbers. And they've got 23 studios. They've got 35 teams, development teams, basically working on separate projects. Some of these teams that some people count might be, well, a support studio, that kind of stuff as well. So that's just like a rough estimate. But if you really think about it, how long does it take to make a game? You know, people say 3 years at least, right? And obviously that will also depend on the project, right? You know, smaller titles might take 2 years to make. You know, bigger AAA games, especially RPGs, maybe even 4. So let's say that, you know, on average, that's like 3 years, right? Yeah. So that means that like they can literally, because like 35 studios, they can spread these titles out. Basically, putting one game per month to Game Pass. I'm talking about first-party content-wise, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, on top of that, they're still going to have like third-party games there as well. But obviously, not every single one of these titles would be like a AAA exclusive and that kind of stuff, right? But just share a number of these studios and project they are working on will really provide them with a ton of content. And I'm kind of even surprised that they still want more, but I think it's more about variety, because obviously the fact that they will have a game per month in Game Pass doesn't necessarily mean that these games going to be for you, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
everyone likes everything, right?
Well, look at this month. We got sports. I'm like, nah, I'm not bothered by that.
Yeah, exactly.
Star Wars Squadrons. I mean, I didn't want. It's a good game. I played it when it was in the trial for EA before EA came to Game Pass. But I wouldn't. That's not a game I would have went out and purchased. But now it's in the part of it this month.
But listen, this is on top of Game Pass, because really, I know that it's in Game Pass, but it's EA Play, really, right?
Yeah, it's cool.
So on top of all these games, they will be putting directly to Game Pass. You've got EA Play, which obviously, that's a lot of games as well. So it's just like, I don't know, it's just so much content there, just crazy.
How long is the EA Play deal for?
I think the EA, because it's merged. This is what you understand as well. EA Play now doesn't exist on Xbox as a subscription service.
Oh, really?
So yeah. I had EA Play separately, and as soon as that happened, they merged it into Game Pass, and EA Play was no longer a thing.
All right.
Really, I didn't know that. I thought that you still can buy it on Xbox.
No, I've got 3. I had a year, because it wasn't even that much, but I had a year's worth of EA Play or whatever it was called, and that got merged into my Game Pass Ultimate. So I got a year's worth of Ultimate.
Nice. Actually, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Because EA Play was not really expensive. It was like
£25 a year or something like that.
Yeah. If you break it down per month, it was like £2.50 or something like that, right?
Yeah,
like £2.
Yeah, it was really cheap. But again,
still wasn't worth it.
No, at the time there wasn't enough that came into it. Like, the only good thing it was every year checking to see if FIFA was worth picking up day one, or checking like if the latest sports game, or even then they started to bring out things like Jedi Fallen Order and things like that. Then it was a case of, oh, brilliant, I can play the first couple of hours, because they didn't let you have 10 hours on those games naturally.
I was going to say, well, no, not even with that, some of the big games they didn't even do a demo for, which was one of the reasons why I picked up the EA Play in the first place. Yeah.
Which was a bit strange, but
what do you guys think about? I know maybe that's a little bit off topic, but what do you think about the Ubisoft adding their games to Game Pass? Like, because there's been so many rumors about Microsoft trying to make a deal with Ubisoft to put their games on Game Pass.
Yeah, I think they should make a deal. I think even if you were to increase the price of Game Pass right now, because what does it stand at the moment? Is it something like $15 a month or something like that? It's like $10.99 or something.
I mean, that's the ultimate.
So even if you're looking at it at that price, which is what it's currently paid, even if you increase that to £15 or $20, if you're including Uplay, EA, and Xbox, which now includes all of Bethesda, into that, even at $20 a month, that service is extremely worth its weight in gold. And I think if Uplay, because I don't think they've had a couple of games within Game Pass, but they've not been in there long when they have.
Well, you mean Ubisoft?
Yeah.
They had Division, I think.
Yes, yeah. But they've also got to see the massive resurgence in the Division, since it's been obviously not just because the next generation and the patch that brought it, but you've got to look at when the other week it was.
I've noticed that all of a sudden everyone started playing Division 2.
Yeah.
Well, it's not one of the reasons why they said they're actually going to continue with DLC
with
for
the
it.
patches.
Yeah. Well, just extra content because of the resurgence. They were like, oh, actually, people are still playing this.
Yeah. And this is why people get they're extremely elated when their favorite game creator says, right, okay, we're going to support your game that you love so much for a lot longer, because we've seen kind of an uprising in player count, like the Division 2 has. Okay, right now we've seen that because of this patch, you've all returned to the Division and you're all playing it more. We've also had it in Game Pass, so we've noticed more players are playing it there. So we've got a resurgence and increase in player count. But then on the opposite side, people are then going, right, well, we hate live service games where it's a game that's going to evolve over time, and we don't like it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, because people, as you know, in anything, they're like, oh, right, okay, well, why would you want to play a live service game? It's blah, blah, blah. But then they're also over the moon that Uplay are doing the same. Yeah. They're doing the same thing.
I did see on Twitter today that Watch Dogs might be announced for Game Pass soon.
Well, Watch Dogs 2?
Legions.
Legions, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
That's a very good game. I played it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I think primarily, I think the reason Legions might go into Game Pass is because out of the 3 titles they released, Valhalla, Legion, and Phoenix Rising, the 2 that did the best weren't Watch Dogs. The 2 that actually did the best on launch were Valhalla, which pretty much everybody has played now, because again, it not only is it Assassin's Creed, but it was probably one of the better out of the 3.
But it's the era a lot of people are asking for, the Viking era.
Yeah. Mm. And then Phoenix Rising took everybody by surprise, because that was like a Ubisoft Zelda, as it were. Breath of the Wild. That was like their kind of version. Not so much, should we say, an RPG like an Assassin's Creed, more of a simplified, but very much interesting with a lot of puzzles. So that absolutely exploded, and I've seen so many positive things about that. So I think it could potentially be correct that Watch Dogs Legions does come to Game Pass, and maybe it's because they want to pick the numbers up on that one as well.
And apparently the co-op got launched today.
Yes, it did. Yeah, that'll be fun. I mean, it's a surprise. I find it very surprising that these games, modern day games, especially when Watch Dogs 1 and 2 had an online pretty much from the start.
No, they were late. They were late to it. Yeah. I'd completed Watch Dogs 2 before the online came on. I had to go back and do all the online stuff to get all the achievements. Yeah. Same with the first one, because I've maxed out achievement-wise, which is why we need something for platinum trophies for Xbox.
Yes, we do. I think you're right about that. We need like some kind of something to say that you've maxed out a game when you've maxed it out.
That's the thing is PlayStation fans are able to say, well, I've got 16 platinums.
And when you know what that means, it means all achievements collected. I think, if Xbox do something, keep the gamer score, but have a little side segment that, I don't know what do you want to do, something else on the side that says, right, okay, you've got X amount of gamer score, but you've got X amount of completed games.
Yeah, because I'd be able to say I've got 63 platinums, or the equivalent, on Xbox.
Exactly, but on Xbox front, it's just a case of, what's your gamer score?
Yeah, I mean, I like the gamer score, but I want something to kind of show that I've completed a game. I've fully completed a game. Yeah, exactly. Back to Bethesda, as it were. What do we think then, if we're saying this week and next week we're going to be getting, because they plan on doing it this week, putting games into Game Pass. Of course, we've already got 6 or 7 games coming this month, mainly from EA.
But what games do we think they're going to start off with then? What initial games are going to be jumping in?
I think they'll put Doom back in.
Yeah. Fallout 4.
Fallout 4, yeah. Especially if they've got that patch up and
Skyrim.
running soon.
Yeah,
I think potentially Evil Within.
I think they will start with games that have already been there.
Yeah.
Like Doom, Prey was there, Fallout 4. I mean, Skyrim wasn't there actually, was it? No.
Was it not?
No.
I've got it that many times at various places. I wouldn't have a clue anyway.
It is now.
I own it on
You can get
PC and stuff. So
yeah, Skyrim's in there now. I've already see. This is the thing. I downloaded Skyrim. Yeah, I downloaded Skyrim.
Which
again
one?
the other day.
Is it the Xbox 360 version or the special edition?
Special edition.
All right, okay.
But I downloaded it the other day, you see, and I turned it on and I played for about 20 minutes, and I was like, I don't know if I can do all of this again. I don't know whether or not I've got the energy to put another 200 hours into this game, because on 360 I played that game to death. I was like max level character, nothing could hurt us, best armor, completed all of the different side quests and all of the different kind of expansions and everything that come with it. And I started playing the game again the other day, and I was like, I don't know whether or not I've got the energy to do all that again. It's such a big game. But I'm really wanting Evil Within to go into Game Pass. Again, following playing the Medium, I didn't give the Evil Within a good enough chance, and I haven't went out and bought it either. So I'm really hoping that primarily they're putting the kind of Evil Within 1 and 2 into Game Pass as well relatively soon, so I can jump into those, because
they're two really good games. I love both of them.
Yeah. And again, they give off it's another awesome creator, because they give off some really creepy vibes. And I've seen clips of gameplays and things like that, but it's been that long since I've seen it. It would pretty much, to me, feel like brand new anyway. So I wouldn't be kind of expecting anything. I would go in there with a fresh head and not know what to expect to a point.
Do you expect most Bethesda games going forward now, or ZeniMax games going forward now, to have the frame rate boost if they can do it to the game, providing the game isn't high to 30 frames a second?
I hope so. I hope games like Skyrim have an official frames per second boost, because there's already an unofficial one in the mod.
Yeah,
you can download a mod that unlocks the frames.
I mean, Fallout 4 was already confirmed. I mean, they if you guys remember, that was even before they launched the next gen consoles. They did show a demo of Fallout 4 running at 60 frames per second on Xbox Series S. So
yeah, one of their announcement ones, wasn't it?
Yeah. So they've got. That's why I was kind of surprised that they didn't really launch with that game, because that was the first game they showed, and it wasn't there. So, but you know what? I think that what's really going to happen is that I think they are testing a lot of these games, and Jason Ronald did say that some games that are being pushed too hard, or push Xbox Series S and X too hard, might get a resolution downgrade to keep it 60 frames per second, because when it comes to those games that have been already released, all these games are Xbox One versions, right? Meaning 1080p or 900p resolution. So you don't really stress GPU too much. Yeah. But when it comes to games that have been enhanced for Xbox One X, and like Skyrim Special Edition is a 4K game. Fallout 4, that's a 4K game on Xbox One X as well. So the real question is, and these games have not been optimized for these next-gen RDNA 2 kind of features and technology, right? So, we're not really taking a full advantage of it, like using the old engine. So these games might actually not run at 60 frames per second at 4K. And that's why Jason did say that some games will require a resolution downgrade in order to allow these games at 60. And one of the reasons why we got this FPS boost kind of option where you can turn it on or turn it off, is that depending on what you like, you can decide yourself whether you want a particular game to run at 4K 30 as it used to, or you will turn on FPS boost, but then you will get better frames, but you will get resolution downgrade, which some people may not like, right? But hey, you've got an option. You can turn it on or turn it off, right?
The whole dynamic resolution thing isn't really a problem nowadays. Like both Sony and Xbox do the whole upscaling really, really well. It's almost nigh impossible to tell. So I would not be bothered if they went that route and kept a solid frame rate. Then I think with having it's like, it's true 4K, it's just like, it doesn't really mean anything. Most people can't tell anyway. You need Digital Foundry to zoom in 1,000% and then start comparing blades of grass to actually tell you the difference, because they're so close with the dynamic resolution and the upscaling and whatnot. And especially if is it VR? I have no idea when it comes to this, but yeah, when they've got on the out things, so it doesn't really matter as long as it looks good and it's not all jaggy everywhere and the frame rate's solid. Then I'm really not bothered.
Yeah, I would agree. One other thing I would say then is obviously we hope we get FPS boost and more games with auto HDR implemented, but of course then looking at the other section, which is how many more games that are already in the back catalogue are going to get these Series X and Series S enhancements or boosts in general, outside of just your standard FPS or HDR boost, which potential more recent ones are going to get additional enhancements just for Series S and X consoles that you won't have on other platforms. I think that's something that they could also explore. Okay, these consoles, it's going to come out, for instance, this back catalogue that we've got coming to Game Pass. So Doom Eternal, I think, is now enhanced. Is that enhanced now, or is it not yet enhanced?
No, not yet.
No.
That's something they could do. Power, but it runs at high resolution. But it hasn't been enhanced yet.
That could go down the route of plays best on as well.
Yeah. So they don't fully optimize. Again, they could fully optimize the back catalog games that are coming to Game Pass. Right? Okay. Well, we've got a small team here that can help you unlock some additional performance metrics for this game, whether it be enhanced quality, enhanced assets, increased frames, whether it be allowing kind of Doom Eternal to run at 120 frames, anything crazy like that. These are something it would be something like that they could also kind of explore. What would you make then? I mean, you mentioned Jason Ronald again, and of course a lot of us might have seen now, and it's been everywhere since the Iron Lords covered it, but following that little interview, his comment on his most anticipated game for 2021 from Microsoft has not yet been announced. We will cover that as well. So I'll go to Madz first, being guest. What do you think that potential title could be then? We know there's a couple outstanding. They have said this several times. We have a couple of things that haven't yet been announced. What do you think could be?
I mean, compulsion game maybe. I don't know. The thing is, like he said, unannounced, right? So, I was like, my first thoughts when I've heard that was like, oh, maybe it's Starfield, right? Because, I know it might be just my wishful thinking, but I really want Starfield this year. It's one of my, most anticipated games. And I know that people say, oh, how can you be excited about game you know nothing about really, because they haven't really shown anything. But hey, it's just going to be Fallout in space. That's all I need, basically, right? So I love Fallout. So but going back to the topic, I mean, Starfield was my first, my first thought. But then he said unannounced, right? So now, Forza Horizon might be one of those titles, but would it really excite you that much? because like, don't get me wrong, I love racing games, I love Forza, right? But I would really treat Forza as one of the games to get really excited about, right? Because despite enhancements and new tracks and stuff, it's still the same kind of racing game, right? I like to play these games, but I wouldn't put that kind of games as a my game of the year kind of contender, if you know what I mean, right? So I'm thinking that might be something else. So when it comes to like first party content, because I assume that's what he was referring to, although he didn't really specify whether he was talking about first party or not. And we know that he knows about other unannounced titles because he provides support for these developers, even third-party developers. So who knows what that might be? But let's assume he was referring to first party. And I will also tell you why I think it might be first party. Because earlier this year, I think that was in January, Microsoft published a blog post on Xbox Wire where they listed 20 games confirmed for Xbox Series S and X for 2021. And obviously they listed Halo Infinite, Flight Simulator, Psychonauts 2, although that's not really an exclusive because it's coming to PlayStation 4 as well, and number of other titles. And at the end of that article, that was, I think, written by Aaron Greenberg, it was said that, and there will be there's still unannounced titles that will come out in 2021, right? And obviously that article was talking about first-party content. Well, okay, so let me rephrase it. Not necessarily first-party content, because a lot of these games that were listed on that list was basically just Xbox exclusives. Some timed, some permanent exclusive, but not necessarily first party, right? So maybe Jason was referring to Xbox platform exclusive, not necessarily first party, right? Because but when it comes to these first party titles, I mean, compulsion games, maybe they will release a game. Couple of months ago, I would say Rare's what's the name of the title? Everwild. But apparently that game is nowhere near being finished.
Yeah, it's quite way off.
It's a long way out.
So I don't know what's up with that. So I think Compulsion Games is really the only studio that comes to my mind that could potentially release a game like stealth kind of release this year, because other titles
would that be his most anticipated, if you think in a year where Halo Infinite releases?
Well, I asked the same question, but to myself. But at the same time, not everyone has to be Halo fan, I guess, right? But although I must say that was very disrespectful towards their biggest IP, to be honest with you, right? How can you not be excited about Halo Infinite if that's really one of the most important titles this year and maybe even this generation? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
At least for Xbox, I have no idea, to be honest with you. I really don't. I'm really excited about the fact that there's still going to be some surprises, and there's still going to be some more games coming to Xbox this year, and hopefully Game Pass as well.
Yeah.
But
we'll see. We've still got games like Warhammer coming out, which isn't exclusive.
Yeah.
You've still got
Stalker 2, Crossfire X.
Exactly. And
that gooey game.
Scorn.
Gunk. Yeah,
Gunk.
Gunk actually looks quite interesting.
Yeah, it looks pretty dope, yeah.
The next couple of months are going to be quite packed because I can't imagine a lot of these games coming out in the winter season or the holiday season because they're just getting gobbled up.
Xbox are going to be like, you want to be pushing away from that.
And you know what? I'm quite surprised that they haven't really started talking about these games yet. And another title is Psychonauts 2. We know that it's finished already.
Is that
because
May time?
Jim, not Jim, what's his name? Tim Schafer. He did say that the game, content-wise, is finished.
Yeah. So it's just going through optimization.
Exactly. So I mean, that game is not really too far away from release. I wouldn't think. Like what? So but they still don't talk about any release dates yet. So it's kind of weird.
It is a strange one. They haven't mentioned release dates on almost anything, which is a bit worrying. But at the same time, I don't put it past them. It's kind of normal to them now to not really mention things, even though we need them to. We really need to have a timeline of when things are coming out, not just at some point in the future.
You know what? I would actually, because here's my problem with Xbox, and well, maybe not Xbox per se, but here's the thing about some of the, not perception, but the fact that the way they kind of talk about these games. Everyone seems to be talking about, hey, let's wait for E3. I'm sure they will announce this during E3. But the problem is that, like, with so much content they've got right now in the works, and so many games to show and stuff, right? I mean, they could use those inside Xbox shows they used to have. And I know there was a lot of complaints about it back in the days, but that was the main reason behind these complaints were made was because there was no content there, right? I mean, the show was boring because they were basically talking about the same games all over again, right? DLCs and stuff. But when even that list that I mentioned that they published in January, there was like 20 games. So just out of these 20 games, you can make like 2 shows talking about the game, showing some new, fresh gameplay, and basically, trying to hype people up about games again, right?
Yeah.
Because they are very, and don't get me wrong, I love the FPS boost and, all these kind of updates. But at the end of the day, it's all about the games. Show us these games. And I think that kind of shows would be a perfect fit for that games, like third-party games or small first-party games. I get it that you want to show, like Microsoft probably wants to show their biggest, exclusives during E3 or at least around that time, because we know the E3 is not going to happen, not in physical form at least.
Yeah.
But so leave those big titles for like E3 kind of time, right? But use those shows to show those smaller titles, like we like show Gunk, show Stalker 2, show Scorn, show
show off third party.
Have a mini deep dive in them all.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's one thing that PlayStation do well, is sometimes these state of plays that they put out when they do just a deep dive.
Yeah,
just like they did with Ghost of Tsushima, right? Okay, well, this game's releasing in a couple of weeks.
That was great. I really liked it.
I think they really need to adopt that more before release. Go, right, this is a deep dive on the mechanics and what you like, parts of the game that you'll be seeing, and the customization and photo mode and different types of ways of playing the game, like they've got with the cinematography, like cinema mode, essentially where it goes all black and white and goes into one of the old Japanese movie styles. Things like that they really need to be pushing for, and I've got to agree with Madz there. I think use smaller shows to like throughout the year to show off kind of second and third party exclusives, and use the big show at E3 to show off first party. Show off what you're working on first party once a year, and use the remainder of your smaller shows throughout the year to show off second and third party exclusive deals that you've got going on, or even just exclusives that they're working on but not directly made by or published by Xbox.
Yeah. I don't know. I really do hope that things will change, because like the problem is that like last year was pretty exciting because like these new next gen systems launched stuff, so it's always all about like power and specs, and that was kind of exciting. But like right now, I mean, it's time to start showing these games.
I mean, we're also, if you've got to think about it, E3 has been cancelled, but we're also now in March, which would only be just under 2 months away from when E3 would take place.
Yeah.
And we have nothing confirmed for any kind of show yet.
Yeah.
From any side. Of course, we're expecting them to do something. But
I don't know what Sony are going to do because they've pulled
That's
out.
super. Listen, that's super weird because I remember last year, Aaron Greenberg was already hyping up E3 like in January last year, right?
Yeah.
And now they quiet. They are quiet.
Yeah, it is very strange. I don't understand again what is happening and whether or not they are going to do something. Hopefully something is announced shortly because we do need to know on both sides. If you have a look, even on PlayStation side, they haven't really announced much themselves outside of we know they've got a couple of games coming out themselves this year. But outside of that,
actually,
let's think second and third party timed exclusives. They have what is it? One first party left this year. Because is it outside? Oh, you've got Kena, but that's a timed exclusive. You've got Deathwire or Ghostwire Tokyo timed exclusive. Deathloop timed exclusive. But then you've got the cat game. Whenever that
timed exclusive.
Yeah.
What's that? Sorry.
It's that weird cyberpunky type cat game where you're a cat playing in some kind of cyberpunk world.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't mock it. I'm actually quite interested in that. Just look at how chilled it looks.
Other than that, though, they've got Ratchet and Clank.
Ratchet and Clank and Horizon Zero Dawn, providing that doesn't get pushed.
Providing it doesn't get pushed back.
I can't wait for that game. Horizon, not Zero Dawn.
Yeah, Horizon Forbidden West.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the first one. I like RPGs. It was a rather light RPG kind of game.
Yeah.
But I really like the story and stuff. So
I think it was a good entry for. Was it Guerrilla?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Considering that it's not their typical genre. I actually thought it was a really good first attempt at what they were trying to do, and hopefully Forbidden West can build upon that.
And I liked the good thing about that game as well, unlike a lot of different open world RPGs, is the difference in the biomes that you kind of go into.
Yeah.
So of course they expanded upon that with Frozen Wilds. But even initially when you had kind of these mountainscapes you could climb, and then you had these desert areas and luscious green areas and forests, and it was just kind of vast open wilderness or deep diving into little caves and little systems and things like that. And then you had, again, brand new kind of enemy and AI and things to explore. And it wasn't just going up against normal kind of humans all the time. Like occasionally you'd come up against them and they're more a pain in your neck than anything else. But then having to figure out how to jump around kind of quick enough to take down a saw, saber, something like that, sword tooth or something.
Yeah.
Taking down these giant dinosaurs and finding the weak spots and trying to hit the weak spots when they're jumping around and moving around all the time, and what's going to be best, what traps to use. And it was just again, for their first attempt, it was really, really good. So I'm looking forward to it. But again, that's a game where you've seen the quality of the first game, you've seen what they can do with it, so you're kind of expecting that you're like, right, okay, we know the game's going to be good. It's just a case of when it comes out, what the story's going to be like, because we know the quality's there. We know visually it's going to be a beautiful game.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, but outside of that, and fingers crossed it does come out this year, I still stand by my point that they'll probably use it as their Holiday 21 game to kind of battle it out against Halo. But outside of that, they've only got Ratchet and Clank. So I think PlayStation also need to come out and show what they've got going on, as well as Microsoft. Of course, now with Microsoft having Bethesda on board, they've got more of an onus on them to say, right, you've paid the $7.5 billion, so what next?
But you know what? But that's the problem. I mean, Sony did came out and shown those games this year, because like how the state of play they call these shows, right? I mean these streams. So they did that. But while Microsoft is quiet. I mean, they don't, they don't promote those games. They don't talk about these games. We still don't know any release dates for any of these games.
Yeah.
Even like estimates. Nothing. Like,
yeah, that's the one thing. And we've been saying it. We said it most of last year. We've seen it again this year. We started off the year saying it. But Microsoft need to be more open and forward with information, and not just being transparent with the information that provide, but provide greater information when they are providing it. And in the case of what they said after the Bethesda acquisition, where I think on the Bethesda statement, that was probably a better statement to put out than what Xbox did in terms of nothing's happening straight away. Don't expect any kind of news straight away. But we are going to be working closely to get more games on Game Pass, which is our initial thing. But to Xbox to kind of muddy the field and say something that they didn't have to say straight away, just threw a spanner in the works that didn't need to be there.
Yeah, although I think they are planning some sort of like gaming event. I think Brad Sams was talking about that event, Future of Games, I think it's called.
Yeah.
March 23rd or something. But the problem is that like it doesn't sound like a proper gaming event, like as in like not a show where they would announce
show off games. It sounds more like the technical aspects behind games.
So
I mean, Xbox and Microsoft love doing these tech talks and industry talks, but they don't. They've done a lot of them recently, but they haven't actually done anything to do with upcoming titles.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, listen, I love technology. Like, I work in IT. I work with computers, different systems, like every single day. I make a ton of videos about tech, and on my channel and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all nice to talk about. It's all cool to talk about it. But like at the end of the day, it's all about like games. Like, show us the games. Show us games that are taking full advantage of the console. Show us new graphics, better performance, etc., right? And like even going back to like studio acquisitions, like people and listen, I'm partially for blame to blame for that as well. We kind of talk about these studio acquisitions and that kind of stuff, but like and even after the Bethesda, people are speculating now who is Microsoft going to buy next. But I'm kind of tired of talking about these acquisitions. I want to see the games first, and then let's talk about more acquisitions later. Because listen, last year was supposed to be the year where Halo Infinite was supposed to drop, and a couple of other titles. 2020 was supposed to be that great for Xbox, and it wasn't really. I mean, there was a couple of games, especially on PC. That actually looked better because at least they got like Flight Simulator and Gears Tactics. I think at the beginning of the year. Then console got it as well. So and I'm not trying to be mean. I don't want to be mean to developers and nothing like that, because I'm sure that COVID had hugely impacted the release schedules and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But at least just show us something. Start talking about these games. I don't know. It's just like it's kind of
I know what you mean. They've got now 23 studios working on franchises. You have within those 23 studios about 30 or more projects on the go. We've seen probably about 10 of them. So within all of that, we've seen gameplay of Halo Infinite before it was pulled for a 1 year delay to get it ready to launch again. We haven't seen Hellblade. We haven't seen Avowed. We haven't seen Everwild. We haven't seen State of Decay 3. We haven't, gameplay-wise, we've seen absolutely nothing of any of the games that could potentially coming out within the next year or two. Apart from Psychonauts, The Gunk, and Halo Infinite.
Yeah.
That's one thing Microsoft really need to. Right, you've got the studios, you've got the developers. Now show us what is being worked on. You can even, like most studios do, little blurb on the bottom, pre-alpha or beta or something like that on the bottom. Pre-alpha footage not representative of final quality or something like that. That will do. As long as you've got that blurb on the bottom that says pre-alpha footage, not representative of final quality. It's showing the game.
Yeah, but I think they are afraid, after Halo Infinite.
The problem that they had with Halo Infinite is that they didn't state anything like that on there, and that game was intentionally meant to be running and like sold within 2 months. Like that game was meant to be out 2 months later.
Maybe, but I still think they are really going to be more cautious on what games they're going to be showing, the way they're going to be showing, and what they're going to be really showing.
Yeah.
Because we complain about the CGI trailers and that kind of stuff, but at least they look good, right?
Yeah.
Wow, and obviously that's not representative of the actual gameplay. I get it, but at the back of the head, when you look at State of Decay 3 trailer, that's what you see, and that's how, kind of that's the way you imagine this game, right?
Yeah.
Despite the fact that that's not the real gameplay.
Yeah. At all.
If they shown you like a crappy version of that game running at alpha or something, you would be like, oh fuck, this is not what I want to play. So at least your imagination is working right now, right? And
that's the thing. I just hope that for this coming generation, at least after this year, when COVID starts to not become I hate to say excuse, but a reason for businesses to have issues like this. When it all dies down and things go back to some normality again over the next year, when the vast majority of nations should have vaccines rolled out to at least 80 to 90% of their populations, that will start to see Microsoft being a little bit more forthright with information or gameplay and things like that for the coming generation. Thankfully, we're only within the first 6 to 12 months of the generation so far, so there's a long time to go. But you need to start on the right foot. I think both consoles have started off on the right foot in terms of the hardware. Both of the hardware haven't been fully utilized by their own first-party studios yet, and won't be for a while. But both have had average to okay starts in terms of gameplay on their systems. Now, Sony have had better first-party, of course, straight away. Granted, you've got remakes in there. You've got a big Marvel game in there. That naturally sells. Now they're starting to give kind of backward compatibility a little bit of an overhaul. And they've got a couple of little kind of first and second party exclusives coming this year. But it's still not to the level that they were performing at last year, say, when they released The Last of Us, Days Gone. Was it Days Gone last year? Was The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima? That's the one.
Yeah.
Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us, before a couple of months prior to that, they had another major first-party title out. And so they need to, again, they also need to say, right, we've got God of War, we've got Ratchet and Clank, we've got Horizon Zero Dawn, or Horizon Forbidden West. But what else? So what else are you working on? That is, apart from them three major key titles that you've got there, Gran Turismo, of course, we know is delayed till next year, so that's coming out next year. There's your four major titles. You've got 13 studios, or 12 now, with Japan Studios GoesseN. What are the other studios working on, and when are you going to show that? And kind of time frames. Really, both companies, and this does boil down to now with Bethesda on board at Xbox need to be more forthright as well. They have now got the abundance of studios. They have, a 10-studio advantage over Sony in terms of content they can put out. They'll need to sooner rather than later, they need to start showing off what they've got and showing off gameplay of things that have already been shown. Is there any final thoughts from both of you on today's topic?
No, I think we've pretty much extensively covered it for the last 2 hours now.
Yes.
It's going to be a short one today. It's going to be a short one. We just got one topic. There's only 3 of us. One topic. It'll be fine.
One big topic. One big topic. I know. Dear me.
Oh man, that Madz never shuts up. Just goes on and on and on.
Blame it on Madz.
Oh God. Yeah. So no, awesome show today. Again, I think we've covered everything to do with the takeover and what we hope and what we expect from the studio going forward and the studios. Fingers crossed we do learn more soon and that the message is cleared up a little bit more, because again, it's still very much up in the air. I want to thank Madz, first of all, for jumping in last minute and providing another awesome guest appearance for the show. So I'll before I say my final message, I want to let Madz do his outro. So thanks again, Madz, for coming along today, brother. If you let people know where they can find you and what you've got coming up.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. It was really a nice show. Cool to talk about those, Bethesda deal and stuff. So thanks for the invite. Obviously, where can you guys find me? You can find me on YouTube, Madz Gaming. You can find me on Twitter at Madz Gaming PL. What I've got going on? Well, podcast tomorrow, same time as this one. With a regular panel, we'll be talking about. Guess what we're going to be talking about? No idea. I need to figure out some interesting topics to talk about. Yeah, so we'll be talking about obviously Bethesda and stuff, and yeah, I'll do daily videos and stuff on the latest news and stuff. So if you're interested in that kind of news, a little bit of tech news as well, check that out. And yeah, I wanted to thank you for inviting me, and like I said, great show. Thanks a lot.
Brilliant, awesome, and thanks for coming back on again, Madz. It's been an absolute pleasure. Awesome stuff, awesome. Shomberlon, if you let people know where they can find you and what you've got going on.
I have no idea I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, let alone next week. But there is my life. You can find me at Shomberlon on PS, PlayStation 4 now, whatever you want to call it, when I'm on, if I'm on Xbox and Twitter. So dead easy to find.
Awesome stuff. Have you got any particular games you're going to be playing at the minute? Or are you starting what was it you were going to be doing? Was it not the Splinter Cell trilogy again? Or
yeah, I'm trying to get myself in the mood for that. It's just too much to play at the moment, because when I start playing it, that's all I want to play. But at the moment, I've got like 6 games or something stupid like that on the go. So
I've just been. See, I haven't really played that much. I played a bit of Sea of Thieves with Pat yesterday daytime. Outside of that, I've just been, whenever I've had a spare 5 minutes, I've been jumping on dirt and just getting 5-6 races or kind of events done.
Yeah.
And going off. I'm trying to really work my way through that, but I don't know just how many races and events are in dirt to complete it. But no, it's a really good game. Do you know how many events are in dirt, Madz?
No, I think that's over 200 or something like that.
Oh, I didn't realize there was that many.
Yeah.
It might take longer than I thought then. Oh, dear me. Oh, well. It looks like I'll be on that for a while. But the great thing about dirt, though, is you can just jump into it at any point, do a few races and turn it off. It's not something you can get invested into. It's just a nice, easy arcade racer. It's fun. But last and final message for this one is an announcement for next week's show, which is we've been working on over the last week or so, and eventually got a reply back. So next week we have a special guest on. It is I'll just cut it short. It is Senior Director of Hardware for Xbox, David Preem. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. So he was involved in the Elite 1 and 2 controllers, as well as Project Scarlet, as you know them, as Series S and Series X. So those were his projects at Microsoft Xbox. So it's absolutely awesome to have him on next week. That will be a shorter show, however, because of obviously with time frames for these kind of execs and directors, etc. They do have limitations, unlike us.
Make sure you ask him why Xbox Series X is underperforming.
We have something relative to that. We'll ask them with regards to the only 40% of power being used currently. Why? When can we expect it, etc. So yes, it'll be asked. We've got a few along the lines of performance questions going on there. So that'll be absolutely awesome to have him on next week, and I can't wait. That will be again at our actually that'll be on a slightly later time next week, just to fit in with his schedule. So that'll be 8 o'clock next week UK, 9 o'clock Europe, and again that'll be back to 3 p.m. EST. So we hope to see you all on then. I can now update the YouTube page that just says to be confirmed and have the official artwork on there. But yes, that's all set up, and I will look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you all for coming along. On a final note, actually, we are still in the Halo tournament. If you didn't catch the last round, we'll be playing again on Saturday, which will be live streamed on YouTube at 5 p.m. GMT against Green Pass Gaming in the second round, to see if we go up against Xbot or Boomsticks podcast in the third round. So I'll look forward to that. But a final thank you to both the panel and all of the awesome chat that came out today. Thank you very much for your support. Again, means the world, and we wouldn't be able to do this every week if it wasn't for your continued support and turning out week in, week out to kind of jump in the chat and have fun with us. So thanks once again, and I hope you have a nice evening. Goodbye.